let's talk about this report that came out from the AFL-CIO, which is the largest labor union federation here in the United States, and it's looking at CEO compensation. This is something they've been looking at for a few years now, so let's get to it because it's getting quite the reaction, especially on social media. So you can see here that the average CEO made 324 times more than the median workers in 2021. That is according to their report. This is their executive pay watch report, and they're calling it Pomp Greedflation. So they point out that corporate profits are up, CEO pay is up, but real wages are down. They call CEOs not work. They said CEOs not working people are causing inflation. So here's the narrative here. But yeah, here are the economics of greedflation and how it compares to real worker wages. So
this is classic right here. I just want to make sure that I got this right. In this chart,
Yeah.
They're saying that the real worker wages went down. The nominal worker wages went up, but I don't see anywhere in there where they show the real CEO pay.
All right, let's dig into it.
Or the real corporate profits.
I'm just going off their report. I'm presenting this report. We're going to get your reaction.
Go ahead.
Okay. So according to the AFL-CIO, they said working people's real wages fall while CEO pay soars. They said in 2021, corporate CEOs were quick to blame worker wages for causing inflation, but workers' real wages actually fell 2.4% in 2021 after adjusting for inflation. Working people experienced a pay cut with every price increase, while U.S. companies enjoyed record profits and CEO pay increased even at an even faster rate. So that's what they say about that chart. Here we go. Greedflation by the numbers. In 2021, CEOs of S&P 500 companies received an average of $18.3 million in total compensation. CEO pay rose 18.2%, faster than the U.S. inflation rate of 7.1%. In contrast, U.S. worker wages fell behind inflation, with worker wages rising only 4.7% in 2021. The average S&P 500 company's CEO to worker pay ratio was 324 to 1. Runaway CEO pay is a symptom of greedflation that they got when companies increase prices to boost corporate profits and create windfall payouts for corporate CEOs. Pomp, I know you have a reaction. Come on.
I feel like trying to oppose or diabolically compare, I don't know, maybe I used that word wrong, CEO pay and worker pay is dumb. Why don't you just say workers should get paid more so that their real working wage goes up rather than down?
It's actually
what does it have to do with CEO pay?
And look, this is the thing this is the kind of framing that's always going to get the headlines because it's like, look at these greedy CEOs and compared to the average worker.
This is socialist propaganda.
The most important data there, though, is that real worker wages haven't increased. But maybe if you just took out that single point versus doing the comparison to the CEOs, hey, inflation is crushing the average American. Like when your grocery bill's up 12.2%, that is just insane.
The average employee is not as valuable as a CEO.
Yeah.
Like, again, people get mad, but like that's just the truth. That is the truth.
I think that is totally fair. And I think, again, this is one of those things that's like everyone's going to pile on social media.
That's fine. The people on the internet are stupid. Like, duh, right? And guess what? That's why the internet is the internet, because there's some smart people and there's some dumb people, and they all yell at each other, and like that makes up the internet. It's amazing. It's this awesome thing.
I think the other thing with compensation, you have to kind of understand like how does it work? A lot of it is stock based, or it's like performance based.
Of course.
It's not like, oh, here's $18 million. Good job. Like it's tied to your equity.
At the end of the day, here's what people don't like. The average worker is more valuable to a company than the CEO. The CEO, many would argue, is the single most valuable person to that business. If you want to get paid more money, create more value. And if you work in a role and you're not getting paid enough money, my guess is, given that there's 11 million open jobs in America, if you have value to create and provide to a business, you can leave and go to another job and they will pay you more money. That's how a free market works. That's how capitalism works. But on top of that, if you are the worker and you're 100% cash and you don't have stock, it's no different than personal finance. You cannot get wealthy by just holding cash. You have to have investable assets in today's society because you cannot save your way to financial security. So what you should be asking for is one of three things. I need upside in the form of some sort of revenue share, a profit share, or I need equity. One of those three things. That's what you should be asking for. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to give you a ton, but any amount ends up being a very important component of it. Now, on top of that, another key component of this is that the CEO pay, as Julia pointed out, is drastically tied to the performance of the business. Nobody ever talks about when Elon Musk got paid all that money. If they put in all these performance bonuses and the company never hit them, no one would have ever talked about it. The reason why they put them in there was it sounded insane at the time. Sure, we'll give you $1 billion if you hit, whatever valuation of the business. Sure, Elon. And then he went and did it. He bet on himself. Now, the other piece of this is that individuals 100% should consider, if you have the skill set, the interest, and the ability, if you want to get paid like the CEO, go do the CEO job. And the best way to do that is to go start a business. And if you are successful, then you will end up getting paid whatever you want. You're the boss. You get paid.
Or you can work your way up to the top. Did you know that the Walmart CEO started as an hourly associate? I think he started in either the U.S. CEO. There's the whole Walmart CEO, and then there's the U.S. CEO. They both started as hourly associates. One was loading trucks. I think that's Doug McMillan. The other was working in the garden center. So they started as store associates.
It's possible. I don't think that that's the path most people should take. Because
probably not for everyone.
Because what happens is for every one person who made it, who's the person who, what's his name? Kevin Mayer, I think was the Disney guy. Kevin Mayer. He was the second in command. It was him and the new
Chapek?
Bob.
Yeah,
Bob Chapek or whatever. And they were sitting and they were vying. It was corporate politics. Who's going to be the new CEO? And then he got passed over and then he left and he went to TikTok, was there for like a week. And then he left there. Yeah. And so what ends up happening is like he worked his way up, right? Gets there and just gets passed over. And so when you look at that, it's like, yes, you could try to do that. My whole mantra and approach is just bet on yourself. Literally go bet on yourself. And by the way, not everyone is made to be a CEO, a founder. Not everyone wants to do that. All that. I get it. That's fine. But the risk that people take and the work that they do is usually aligned with the value they create. I could make a very strong argument that Elon Musk is underpaid. I can make a very strong argument that Jeff Bezos is underpaid. Now, I think that it doesn't really matter because they get so much money, like whatever, right? But I also, and a key piece of this, is the average worker is underpaid as well. And so if that's the claim, like if that's what they're worried about, which it's a union, of course that's what they're worried about, the approach of, well, you make more money than me, so we should make more money is dumb, right? Because guess what? I can make a bigger argument than them in 2 seconds. Hey, inflation is 9.1% in America. You only raise our wages 4.7%. You're paying us less money. We need more.
Because
you don't have to talk about the CEO. Just literally say, pay us more money and we should get a 12% raise because we're literally getting paid less because of high inflation.
High inflation is a good point because usually it's like the typical, I've worked in corporate America where it's like, oh, you get the 3% raise each year to keep up with inflation. But yes, you should make a stronger argument on it's not keeping up with inflation right now. You mentioned Jeff Bezos. I don't know if the guys have it, but this is the example they break out in here. I don't know if you want to see it, Pomp, but they point to the Amazon CEO as their target.
Of course. These people are just looking for ways to get headlines.
Here you go, with the Andy Jassy's compensation. That's what they break out.
But here's the craziest part. Amazon. So like they're going after Amazon, right? They claim that Amazon's median worker pay is $32,000, all this stuff, right? If I Google right now, Amazon hourly wage, this is the part that I just like, wait, what are you talking about? Frequently asked questions about Amazon.com. This comes from payscale.com. They pay their employees an average of $17.59 an hour. It ranges. The lowest that Amazon pays is $14.45. The highest is $29 an hour. There are people who are literally talking to politicians, begging politicians, please pass $15 an hour
Amazon
federal
was
minimum
leading
wage.
that conversation. Yeah. They were one of
the free market. Jeff Bezos already outperformed the politicians. Jeff Bezos pays $17.59 an hour. Why aren't the politicians able to do it? Because the free market ends up doing it beforehand. That is capitalism. And literally, the politicians are yelling and screaming about $15 an hour. Well, why don't we make it $17.59? Why only 15? Why so bearish? Instead, jack it up.
Let me ask you this, because it makes me wonder, what is the goal of this? Is it, okay, well, let's raise awareness and boost worker wages, or is there another side of it, like cap CEO pay? what would be the consequences if you had, I don't know, like if that's even possible, because we're talking about free market here. You can't really do, I don't know. What would be the consequences of that?
But like it just throws off the market. Like literally just let it be a free market. What we end up finding is there's 11 million open jobs in America, 10.5 million, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Guess what? People want somebody to come work there. And if they say, okay, I'll pay $12 and no one shows up, guess what they do? Fine, I'll pay 13. Okay, nobody shows up. 14, 15, 16, 17. Amazon is paying $17.59 an hour on average. And guess why? Because they have to. If you went to them and said, hey, by the way, the market will allow you to pay $14, they pay $14. But that's not what the market is. The market is higher because they can't get enough people to come work there, so they have to keep raising the price. That's how the game is played. That's how free markets work. And so the second that you step in and you start to cap compensation, you're just manipulating the market. You throw it all off. By the way, if CEOs are bad, they get fired.
True.
If the government stops stepping in, if they really wanted to go after CEOs, go rail against the government that bailed out all the companies that were going to fail during COVID. Why did we give $25 billion to the airline industry when they were bankrupt? Like it was over, game over. It was over.
That was, remember Chamath's CNBC segment on that?
Yes, yeah. It was over. The airlines were done, and the CEOs that led those businesses and didn't have the strong balance sheets to survive that situation because they'd done stock buybacks for the last decade should have been out. It should have been over.
Yeah.
And guess what? The planes wouldn't have stopped flying. They would have put everything, all the assets into bankruptcy, and there would have been new people who came in, took those assets, they would have recapitalized the business, and they would be off to the races again. That's not what happened. Instead, the government stepped in. They gave them $25 billion in one of the slugs. I think there was a second slug as well. And 2/3 of it, they just said, don't worry about it. You don't pay us back. You know, it's not debt. It's not equity. It's just a gift.
Yeah.
Like everyone watched it. We paid for that. We propped up bad businesses. But hey, we're going to go after the CEOs of these other companies that are good businesses.
They're probably on this list too. Let's keep going. So this is what they also say. CEO pay matters. This is their other segment. They say the ratio of CEO to worker pay is important. A higher pay ratio could be a sign that companies suffer from a winner-take-all philosophy where executives reap the lion's share of compensation. A lower pay ratio could indicate that companies that are dedicated to creating high-wage jobs and investing in their employees for the company's long-term health.
But I don't think that the wage is the only way that people measure the investment in their people. For example, Walmart is famous. Walmart, I believe, sends their college plan? It was $1 tuition, but they have a whole college tuition reimbursement. In July of last year, Walmart announced they're going to pay 100% of college tuition and books for associates. Yep. They're going to invest nearly $1 billion over 5 years for career-driven training and development. 100% of college tuition and books for their associates.
Can I tell you more about that? I actually covered this. So it used to be their dollar. It was like you pay $1 just to have a little skin in the game. I forgot what it worked out. It was like $1 a week or something. And now it's free.
$1 a day. The
$1 a day,
$1
whatever it turned out to be. Yeah. So it's just a little skin in the game. But now they've opened up that benefit. And not only are they doing these different college ones, they also have more vocational and technical training for their associates too, which is really important. They are the largest private employer in the United States with I think 1 million people work for Walmart, and 90% of the US population lives within 10 miles of a Walmart. I grew up in a rural part of Virginia and I live 11 miles from the Walmart. Yeah.
But I think that's part of it. That doesn't show up in the worker to CEO wage.
Or if you look at Starbucks, for example, we were talking about them the other day, but they are probably the quintessential example. They were the first, I think they were the first to do the tuition reimbursement for their partners, is what they call their retail workers.
And to be clear, I'm not arguing that we shouldn't pay workers more. I'm actually arguing the opposite. I'm just saying that the way to make the argument is not this CEO to worker ratio, right? That is the argument that is made by people who don't understand economics. That is the argument that is made by people who do not understand business. It's by think tanks, by unions, by all these people who do not understand the market. Yeah. Instead, you can make the same exact argument in terms of what you're trying to accomplish, which is we should pay workers more money. I agree with that. I've been literally every single day, that's all I talk about, is that if you have not gotten a raise of more than 9.1% over the last 12 months, or you do not have some sort of upside in your job, you're getting paid less money today than you were a year ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at one point we even did a whole tutorial on how to go ask for a raise.
Okay, I was gonna say, here's how I did it, because I used to struggle with this, and I'd always like, put my head down, do my work, like have great performance numbers, but I was always like, I never asked, and I would kind of mention I would want this role. So it was actually, I'm not gonna say who it was. There was a CEO who gave me great advice, and he was like, write it into a memo. And I showed him the memo I'd worked on. I had another CEO, so it was like 2 different CEOs, and one was like, take this out, too much emotion. Like, so I wrote this like boss memo, and I like walked into the room and I said I did this, this, and this, and this, and this, and I'd like this role and this raise, and I just slid the memo across the desk. And then guess what? I got it. And then I cried afterward because I was like, wow, why did it take so long? Why was I so scared? I should have asked for this for like years ago.
There's a balance, right? Because I think some people are too scared to ask, like in this situation, right? And then once they do it, usually people are like, yeah, of course we'll pay you more money.
Oh my God, I'm 32 but then there's other people, I should have asked way sooner.
But there's other people who they ask every fucking month.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen that. They're like, I'm going to go ask for a raise right now.
So there's a balance of like, if people really are thoughtful about it, yes, there are times to ask for it and a way to ask for it, to your point. But you got to be careful. Like if somebody just asks every single month, you're just like, look, I talked to a lot of founders. I talked to a lot of CEOs. And that's probably the number one thing is they'll be talking to an employee and like, there's one specific CEO I know who's like, I'm giving them feedback. Like, you must improve. You're not doing well. Like we're going to put you on an improvement plan. And at the end of the conversation, it's like, hey, I need more money. Oh,
and while they're getting the PIP or whatever you call it, the performance improvement plan.
Yeah, it's just like, come on, just make sure that you pay it. Now, the last thing I want to say about all this before we move on is workers in the United States of America are getting screwed right now. That's the only thing probably me and this union group agree on is that workers are on real wage basis are getting paid less money. That's wrong, right? People should go try to raise wages. Now, part of the problem for most of these companies is that if inflation is 9.1% and you haven't jacked up your prices 9.1%, you actually will be making less money already. And then if you also then try to move your worker pay up 9.1%, the economics of the business get thrown off and they're almost not able to do it. So high inflation, this is less about greed. Inflation is throwing a huge wrench into a lot of these businesses where they're saying like, hey, we don't want inflation, right? Yeah. We don't want to deal with this. But the worker is getting paid less money and the worker should be paid a commensurate increase with inflation. The problem is inflation 6 months ago was 7%.
Yeah.
Now it's 9.1. So the business can't like, hey, every single month, let's wait for the CPI print. Okay, let's go raise it another rate. We don't even know if we've
reached peak inflation at this point. So
if they get a 9.1% inflation, then inflation goes to 12%. Everyone's gonna be yelling and screaming and be like, you should give them a 12% rate. Like it's a moving target. But businesses, I mean, we saw last year, BlackRock and a number of these companies gave 8% raises and stuff like that. Now, those are Wall Street firms. They obviously have a very good understanding of the economic situation, whatever. But I do think that is the strongest argument that these folks have is real worker wages down. We should change that. And so that means that people should get a raise. How that happens, each company is different. What is the way to affect that change? Again, I don't think it's saying, greedflation or yelling at the CEOs or whatever, because I think a lot of people just say like, the conversation gets focused on the CEOs, not on the actual issue, which is that the workers aren't getting paid enough. Yeah. And so let's go raise their
So
rate.
What they are saying though, before we close, they're saying that the CEO basically got a raise of $2.8 million from the previous year. I guess that's their average S&P 500 CEOs.
My guess is it's because stock-based compensation and asset prices exploded. I would love to see them recalculate it now with the current stock prices and
maybe
see
it will go down. Yeah, when they do the 2022 report, because this is all last year's data.
It's a wild world. All right, where can we send people to find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter. My handle's Julia LaRoche.
Hey you, did you like this video? Great, we make 5 of them a day and post them here on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed, like the video, and see you next time.